Let's talk about The Imperfects, Netflix's latest superpowered series. I'm going to be recapping elements of this first season, sharing my own personal thoughts and feelings, which means there will be spoilers ahead. Other than a multitude of overlapping subplots that bear little tangibility, the vast bulk of this series can be contextualized in only a couple sentences. Three main characters. Abbi is a very smart student who can produce mind-altering pheromones. Tilda is a mouthy punk rocker who has super hearing. Juan is a graphic novel creator who can turn into a chupacabra. These three people have these side effects due to genetic experimentation in their youths via Dr. Alex Sarkov, and they take medication to balance themselves out. They stop getting their meds, their powers get stronger, and they hunt down Sarkov to help create a cure for their conditions. There you go, that's the premise. Sounds simple on paper, of course, but the pacing of this series just made it feel like a drag to endure. Surprisingly, there's not an awful lot of action here. I know you don't always need to plug a show like this up with lots of action just to keep it interesting. However, initially I was setting up The Imperfects to be a new variant of the Umbrella Academy. See, there you've got a lot of characters and a lot of subplots, while the main plot is relatively simple, but it often moves at a breakneck speed to keep the momentum and viewer interest going before taking appropriate breathers for character and plot development. The Imperfects starts its first episode in a similar way to Umbrella, where it feels like the ingredients are piss and vinegar. It has attitude, it's in your face, it's incredibly punchy and witty, and the speed of how the first episode unfolded itself was really promising to me. It very much hooked me, and I was looking forward to the journey ahead, but sadly what I received afterwards felt like a bit of a lull. The show can go for a full half hour wading through sludge with biological technobabble spilling out over the sides. There's a lot of science talk relating to protein glitches and stem cells and artificial DNA. Like, the concepts aren't tough to grasp if they're explained well, but The Imperfects is scripted in a way where it bombards you with exposition. The initial setup was great in my opinion. This show will more than likely garner woke comments, so get them in down below while they're hot. But the link between our three protagonists here is that they're on meds. A lot of young people take meds for various reasons, and here they've merged that daily routine that millions around the world endure into a comic book style narrative. I really like that conceptually. Being a YouTube reviewer, I see a lot of anti-representation comments aimed primarily towards race and gender. However, here, the main characterization pushed in the show is based upon a way of life rather than an aesthetic thing. That shared sense of community via all taking medication between Abbi, Tilda and Juan, I really quite enjoyed, at least at first. When the show began, it reminded me a lot of Misfits, ragtag group of young problematic people from various backgrounds that share a sense of community via having to do community service together for being hoodlums, and then wind up developing superpowers. Misfits was a fabulous blend of a serious comic book format story with comedic overtones. The Imperfects does contain similarities there, and it does pack quite a good amount of funny moments throughout. It's the kind of show I can imagine will have funniest lines compilations made for it. It does get progressively weaker in this field, however, with Dr. Sarkov being either its detriment or its saving grace, depending on how you look at it. Sarkov here is played by Rhys Nicholson, and the reason why a decent amount of this show's special effects aren't particularly outstanding is because they had to use a lot of the budget up on Nicholson chewing the scenery to dust. A fair way to put it is that he's as camp as Christmas, which is a pretty big juxtaposition to the character he plays, at least as a character stereotype. He's an extremely intelligent biologist whose research and experiments cause the mutations of our leads, yet doesn't act like a stereotypical scientist. To me, that's really refreshing actually. He's not some old guy in a white coat and glasses or a well-spoken, eloquent gentleman. He's just a super sassy fella who spits out venomous comebacks. He's a buzzing ball of energy, and genuinely he was my star of the show here. Like, I was looking forward to the scenes he was in just because of how radical he was. Quite often I felt like Tilda was almost a bit too cocky, cause that's her persona, and yeah, she's got a lot of funny moments, but sometimes a lot of her dialogue feels the way it is because they need a funny line to balance the scene out, so she's relied upon to drop a funny bombshell. As for the others, I couldn't fully gel with either Juan or Abbi. Both of them did have their moments, but for long periods of the season they became like charisma vacuums to me. They just sort of are there. So when I was only really semi-invested in only one of the main trio, it made the ride a little sluggish to endure at times. Their chemistry in every direction of their triangle did have the ability possibility of feeling a little awkward and unnatural. Not all the time, just sometimes. And the fact they just decided to make Juan and Tilda crush on each other halfway through the series felt stuck together with really old blue tack. It just sort of emerged to add an extra subplot to the already high pile of stuff going on. You've got Abbi's on and off attraction to Hannah, Juan has a girlfriend and he's got a family as well, Tilda's got a bad relationship with her dad, then you've got Tilda being in a band and having a boyfriend who fall out and get back together again, she's replaced as the band's vocalist and then she's the vocalist again, then you got all the stuff with Abbi getting into Oxford and Juan has his own graphic novel series. The Imperfects throws far too many darts at these characters in order to bring to life a rich detailed world when really it feels a bit ham-fisted and clumsy. I haven't even mentioned Dr. Burke, played by Italia Ricci. Her whole thing is she's an old accomplice of Sarkov and they both work together on the genetic cure. Yet also she has powers of her own, being able to turn into a completely different version of herself named Isabel Finch, played by Kyra Zagorski. Oh, and there's loads of people who hate Sarkov and want to kill him. There's a secret agency that hunts down mutated anomalies. You've got a guy called Doug whose wounds heal, yet he still feels their pain. There's Owen who has super strength and wants to form a super squad, an idea that gets dropped at the end of the episode for another time. It's a show that contains too much cereal, not enough milk. The Imperfects tries to juggle a galaxy's stars with one hand behind its back, and it makes the whole experience of watching the show muddling and rather scattergun. Sometimes my brain was that fried, it was difficult to keep track of. Doesn't help that the show does a lot of jumping around geographically. There were many points I had to try and focus all my energy just to try and work out how the hell they ended up there. That may just be an issue I went through in my personal experience of the show based upon one watch through, because there was just so much going on simultaneously that I felt like I needed to do a Charlie Day wall chart just to keep up, which for me is a bit of a testament that more isn't always more. But when you do more, you can pace things in a way where you can still follow and comprehend events, rather than being bashed around the head by them. The Imperfects is an odd one where I don't know if 10 episodes was too much or too little. For the sheer number of ideas they had, maybe 12, perhaps 13 episodes could have been better to expand upon them more clearly. Or alternatively, they could have cut a lot of waffle and filler out of the equation and had a much more compact 6 to 8 episodes, which would have been my preference. It got off to a good start, but lost momentum as it continued, and overall the Imperfects was 10 episodes of imperfections. This show has been receiving a lot of 1-star reviews, which I think is definitely undeserved. I'd maybe give it like a 6, 5 if I was being harsh, but I'd love to hear your comments down below what you made of season 1 of The Imperfects, whether you agree or disagree with my thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, a cheeky sub would be much appreciated to help keep the channel going. The UK is going through a cost of living crisis right about now, so any extra views you could help us achieve by hitting subscribe to get us recommended to more people would at least help us keep our PCs running a little longer. I'm Connor from Unleash the Ghouls, and we shall see you next time for another honest review. Cheers out.